Awesome. All right. I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's discussion. We're going to get started in just a minute, but I want to give the stragglers a chance to join in. Maybe people are grabbing coffee. But while we wait, I'd like to pose a question to everyone here just to get the ball rolling and to give us a better idea of what we can expect today. So the poll question I've got, I'm going to pop it up on the screen now, is simply how many locations are you currently managing the SEO or the online reputation for right now? This is SEO for multi-location businesses. That's what the topic of our discussion is. So I'm curious to see where everyone's at. Do we have a lot of 50 plus location people or what? So let's see. Refresh the attendee. Let's see how many people we have coming in. All right, so that number's still going up.
Awesome. Option 5, too many. Or option 6, Chuck Norris, all of them.
All right. I see a fellow PE in the audience, Nathan Driver.
Yeah, let's see who's in here.
There's a bunch of people in here from a company called Birdeye. Who's that?
They're just here to support. Awesome. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and see these results. All right, so 25% of the answers are managing one location. 31% is between 2 and 10. And 12.5 is between 11 and 50. And then 31% has over 50 locations that they're managing. That is incredible. Awesome. Well, I think we've got, let me check the numbers real quick. Let's see. All right. I think the attendees have started to slow down, so we can go ahead and get started. Awesome. Where am I? Make sure we're good to go. All righty. So let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the second installment of the Local Search Expert Series, SEO for multi-location businesses. I am your host and digital marketing evangelist, Justin Meredith, and we have a fantastic discussion planned for everyone today. But before we jump in, let me go ahead and show you around your webinar dashboard and what that will look like and what you guys can do with this. And if you have not used this platform before, this is On24. And we've got some really cool features that you guys can utilize today. So on the top left of your screen, you should see myself and our two guests, who I will introduce in just a second. And below that, you can see the presenters' bios, which will allow you to connect with us on LinkedIn, send us an email if you want to learn more, or simply just learn more about us. And I think we have some snippets there, part of our bios and things like that. To the right of that, you should see the slides, and those will change automatically. And with all of these windows, you should be able to minimize it or maximize. You can change the size of each of these windows just by dragging on the sides or the corners. So if you want the slides to be bigger, you should be able to expand that. To the right of the presenter bios are our Q&A box and our attendee chat. Feel free to submit any question that you guys have regarding anything SEO, Google, online reputation. And please don't be shy. We have allotted for an extra amount of time for our Q&A today so that we can answer all of your questions. So don't be afraid to use that Q&A function. And then if you want to just say hi, let us know where you're tuning in from, or maybe you have a comment or a thought or anything like that. Or maybe just like a side question, feel free to drop that into the attendee chat. We'd love to hear from you. And then to the right of that, you should see a request demo button. If you're curious to learn more about Birdeye and seeing what all the tools and features that we have in action, you can click that and check it out. And then on the top right of your screen, you should see our related content window. And there you can have access to our SEO local search checklist, which was provided by Steve and his team. Super, super helpful document. We use it all the time. You can download it. I think it's a direct PDF, so you can download it and use it as a template or a checklist for yourself whenever you're going through, making sure all of your stuff is set up for your SEO. You also have our previous installment of the Local Search Expert Series, How to Get More from Your Google Business Profile. And that is an awesome discussion that we had with Ben and Steve here, where we basically showed you the ins and outs of a Google Business Profile and how to make it the most optimized, or how to maximize the potential and the impact that your Google business profile can have for your business. After that, we have the Google Reviews, the 5 Stars to Success webinar. That one's coming up next month. That is the final installment of our Reviews to Revenue Masterclass that we've been doing here at Birdeye. Where we're covering everything that is involved with your online reputation, from Google reviews to SEO, to how to basically build an entire online reputation for your business that will stand strong, and how to overcome a bad online reputation. And then we also, you can also follow us on LinkedIn. We have some awesome content that we get posted. Jody, the social media manager for Birdeye, does an amazing job of posting daily content of tips, best practices, helpful blogs, really a lot of educational content to help you maximize and really kind of take advantage of your online reputation. We also do some live streams where actually Ben, Steve, and I went live on Tuesday and had a really awesome discussion kind of surrounding this webinar and then other topics around it. So be sure to give us a follow on LinkedIn. We post some awesome content, and it's not just a bunch of sales pitches and stuff. It's actual like educational stuff that you can really take some value from. Alrighty, now let's introduce today's guests. Today we have Ben Fisher and Steve Wiideman, and this is the second time that they've been joining us for this series. And I'm really honored to have you guys back here. Thank you so much for joining us. How are y'all doing today? I'd like to let you guys talk a little bit about yourselves and tell the audience more about yourself. So
Ben, I'll let you go first.
Oh, come on, Steve. I was going to let you go first, man. Jeez. All right, I'll start. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? Ben Fisher here of Steady Demand. Basically, I am a Google Business Profile product expert. I'm the diamond level, which is as high as it goes. That just basically means, just like any other product expert, I get to engage with Google, the managers, product managers over at Google on a daily basis. We meet with them every single week, and we get to make some really, really, really cool impacts on the product and kind of get to see things well before everybody else. No, but seriously, so my company, Steady Demand, I mean, we work basically as you would expect, local SEO, and Google Business Profiles, of course, is our specialty, especially when it comes to like suspensions, reinstatements, guidelines when it comes to like franchises and enterprises, kind of helping you rein in your franchisees. We all know they can kind of go a little bit rogue. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. That's good enough in a nutshell. Over to you, Steve.
That, yesterday was such a cool day because I finally got to see the backside of what you do over there, Ben, and to watch as competitors were trying to change a business's information to hurt their rankings. That was incredible. Yeah. It was like, 50 times, and you could see it like actually happening. Pretty cool stuff. So I've been in search, I don't know, it feels like the greater part of 2 decades now. I have a degree in e-business management. My corporate days, included Disney Parks and Resorts Online. Really got to grow up in the industry. And now, 10, 12 years after we started our business, I'm teaching at Cal State Fullerton, UC San Diego. I wrote a textbook called SEO Strategy and Skills. That's now been adopted by, I believe, somewhere close to 35 different colleges and universities. So very excited to see that online extensions are picking up that curriculum. And I run a small group of consultants over here, and we work with a lot of multi-location and e-commerce brands, some of which are restaurant chains, and we've worked with some big storage companies, a shoe manufacturer, and multi-location shoe store. And it's been a really exciting journey. So I'm glad that we get to talk about this topic today because it's one of my favorites, because we do a lot of research and we've got a lot of data and a lot of case studies, a lot of tips and tricks that we're going to go through. And Ben has got some really cool myths that I'm sure he'll help debunk today that will save you a ton of money from all those people out there that are trying to sell you snake oil. So excited to be here, and looking forward to talking about multi-location and how you can scale across thousands of locations and beat the neighboring mom and pop.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. And first, let's go over what we are going to cover today. So first, we are going to talk about the SEO challenges that multi-location businesses are facing. Then we are going to talk about the differences between the SEO strategy of a single location business versus a multi-location businesses, and the different hurdles that come with each of those. And then what to do if you're a franchise, and whether you're on the franchisor side or the franchisee side, and how do you navigate the online marketing of that. Then we'll dive into those SEO myths. What are people doing right now, thinking that they're helping their SEO, and in reality, they're probably hurting it. And then we are also going to be covering some tips and best practices, some things that you guys can take with you today and start working immediately to improving your online placement and your whole strategy. Then for the second part of this discussion, we have our Q&A session. And please do not be afraid to ask questions. We want to answer as many as possible. I think we've already got one in. Awesome. Cool.
Oh, yeah,
So we've already
it's
that's good.
It's a juicy one too.
Yeah. Cool. All righty. So moving on. What are you going to learn today? So that's what we're covering. But what will you walk away after this discussion? Well, you're going to learn how to get key stakeholders in one room to make decisions. And that's half the battle, is trying to get everybody together to be on the same page. So we're going to talk about, some of the questions that you can ask and some of the ways that you can do that. Next, we're going to talk about how to understand budget and ROI, predicting it and understanding how to quantify it. We're going to really get a better understanding of what it actually means to have an ROI when it comes to your SEO and making sure that it's accurate. We're going to talk about how to set performance expectations. As part of that conversation with your stakeholders, you're going to be talking about, well, what can we expect the results of this to be? Is our money going somewhere worthwhile? What KPIs should you be focusing on? What metrics matter? What metrics don't matter to what you're trying to achieve? And we're going to cover that as well. And then what areas to prioritize for location-based search? Because that's what this is. We're talking about local businesses. And most of those end up being with those near me searches. And so we're going to talk about how you can, what to focus on in order to capitalize on that more.
So get your notepads out, because there'll be a quiz at the end.
It's going to be.
There will be.
This is what you want to be taking notes on and be paying attention to, for sure.
Definitely. And that reminds me, we have, as you guys can tell, we have a lot to cover. So there is a chance we might go a few minutes long. If you can't stay on for that, it's okay. The recording will be provided after we're done through an email. But if you can stick around for a few extra minutes and we have some questions to answer, please feel free to do that as well. But I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that this has potential to go long, because we were trying to jam so much into this. As we're preparing the slide deck, I was like, oh my goodness, I hope we have enough time for everything. So I figured I'd give you guys a warning.
30 seconds per bullet point. 30 seconds per bullet point.
Awesome. Cool. Alrighty. So let's get into the first bit: multi-location SEO challenges. And the first one that we have is that stakeholders meeting. Ben and Steve, do you guys want to get started on this and kind of talk about what that
you take this one?
Yeah, I'll just go really quickly on this. So, it was kind of interesting because Steve and I were doing another webinar back about franchises, and we talked about this entire concept, right? Of, what I call war rooming now. And, it's one of the first things that I think you can do to effectively manage basically multi-location SEO. And because there's so many challenges that you get basically, right? And we're going to go over each one of these. But, the stakeholder meeting can really help kind of streamline all of this, because you've got everybody there that can make a decision and that can basically say, hey, I'm going to take this. I'm going to own this piece. And so we're going to be going over the next couple things, which are the other challenges, which is budget, basically, ROI, organic versus PPC, and scaling activities. But everything kind of starts in this war room, because you get to basically assign your generals, and then your generals can basically get the soldiers after that. But the generals, those are the ones that matter. And one of the biggest problems I think that we can both agree on here, Steve, is that when people don't agree on who's going to do what or whose responsibility is what, the buck always gets passed. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know about that. Yeah, I thought Steve was taking care of it, or, I was pretty sure. Wasn't that Justin's team? I'm pretty sure it was. I don't know anything about that. So that's what you do. That's where you start with war rooming. What's been your experience there, Steve?
Yeah, it's interesting when I have to help in a corporate level, the person we're working with, the director of marketing. So let's just say it's a I don't know, auto repair franchise or whatever. And director of marketing is like, yeah, I can't seem to convince everybody how important this is. So one of the things that's really helped us to get through, this particular challenge is pulling data, right? What's our average position compared to the competition? What's our share of voice of the keywords we should be appearing for? What's the traffic available? And then respectively, based on our conversion rate and average order value, the revenue available if we were to appear more prominently in search results, and bringing that to the stakeholders' attention in a one-page little awareness sheet. Here's what we're missing out on: approximately $2 million a year of revenue right now we're giving to our competitors because our share of voice is 6 and theirs is 12. But we can fix that, and we can get back that revenue that we've been losing the last 2 years so that we're not draining $2 million a year. That gets their attention. 2 million, Jesus. How much are we spending on SEO right now? Well, you've got a junior SEO specialist over here making $35,000 a year, and you've got a $2 million opportunity. Seems like we could probably up our investment a bit and get some senior resources in here to, really move things along. And that seems to help. But you're right. If you can't convince them, and we've got some ways to do that when we talk a little bit later about local pages, but if you can't convince the stakeholders that it's important and what the competitive advantage is, they're not going to listen. They're not going to be bought in, and they're not going to help you to push things along, like you said, Ben.
Yeah, and that fits perfectly with the next challenge of budget and fitting into budget, and when it comes to these stakeholder meetings and talking about that. And another part of that also, when it comes to understanding the money side of SEO, is predicting ROI. Steve, what are your thoughts on how to, when it comes to predicting ROI, what's the challenge that comes with that? What maybe a way to maybe combat that?
That's a tough one too, because it's like we just mentioned, if you haven't already done your research to know exactly what that total potential is, it's tough. So when you can come back and say, look, if you give me this much budget for these resources, perhaps I'm going to use Birdeye for data management and reviews. Perhaps I'm going to, hire a developer to help me build out location pages for each location. Here's the total budget I'm going to need. And based on that forecast that we presented to build awareness of it, here's what I predict the ROI will be in starting in a year from now, because it's going to take a year for Google to to really recognize all that effort and show fruition. So you can't predict that in a year from now we'll have made this much. In a year from now we'll be positioned to make this much the following year, is how we kind of predict it. And then you come back and you say, in 3 to 5 years from now, if we're able to sustain those rankings based on the available traffic to us and growing 10% per year, whatever goal you end up setting, you can say this is what our ROI is going to be on our organic and map visibility improvements. And it's a tough one to do. And if, after this, you want to have me kind of walk you through that a little bit more individually, or during the Q&A, we could do it. I'm also happy to share a little bit of the formulas that we use in Excel to help do that, and some of the tools that we use to set those initial keyword rankings and share a voice. So, but that's how I generally do it. If you can do that, you can raise sort of a sense of urgency. Like, oh my God, we're losing $2 million a year. That's awful. What do we need to be able to do that? Well, can I get 10% of that, maybe 200,000 in budget, so that I can get 2 senior people, to support me and to get this platform to help with reviews? And then they're like, all right, so I'm expecting a year from now we'll be forecasting for the following year this much, and then you can push it through.
Justin, before we move on, I want to talk about budget and fitting into budget really quickly. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I just want to talk about the problem, and then I want to share a very quick story. Okay. I promise it'll be quick. So the problem this applies to enterprises and franchises, right? The problem is that they look at pay-per-click, and they feel pay-per-click can give them an immediate result. It can give them something that they can track, right? And they just put the money into it, and stuff happens, basically. But when it comes to SEO and our types of activities, they look at it, and Steve and I were in a meeting about this just the other day, but they look at it and they say, well, how do we know that what you are doing is leading to sales or footfall, or things like that? And usually the answer is kind of a little bit ambiguous. We try our best. Especially when it comes to footfall, it's like, footfall, that's a whole nother department, and they usually don't talk to organic. They don't talk to anybody, actually. Usually this is how many feet fell. We have no idea where they came from. So the story I want to give is this: is that if you cannot get the stakeholders in there that are going to decide that this falls into a budget and gives it a certain type of budget, then you get this kind of a scenario. I had this one client. One of the things that we specialize in, and Steve was kind of alluding to this earlier, is that we specialize in protecting Google business profiles, right? We keep them on Google Maps so they don't disappear from your dashboard or get suspended, or if they do get suspended, they come back, protect them from name changes, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, long story short is whenever these types of things happen to a GPP, you're losing money. You're no longer on Google Maps, right? That's like being number 20 in Google organic search. You're dead, basically.
Graveyard.
So, it's like if you have a unit that goes offline and let's say you're in Los Angeles, you know exactly how much that's costing you, right? Because 90% of your business, let's be real, comes from Google Maps if you have a local business. So what a situation that happened was we're talking to a franchisor. They control all the marketing for their franchisees. They understood the problem. They had gone through a scenario where they lost 100 units the previous year. And it cost them, I think it was around $2 million, I believe was what the number came out to be. Is what that cost them, because it took them 6 months to get back online. So we gave them our solution. Our solution was like really, really inexpensive comparably. They probably spend more on paperclips. And so, but when they went to their CMO, the CMO said, well, how much are we going to have to take away from pay-per-click? And by the way, so we're going to spend this monthly fee on this. How is that going to make us money? And they tried to explain, well, you were making money by not losing money. Yeah. And ultimately what ended up happening was, and this is only a 300 unit franchise. What ultimately ended up happening is that they ended up declining to go with the type of service. No problem. 6 months later, I get a phone call. Guess what? 90% of our network has gone dark, basically. So they got hit super hard. 90% of the profiles went offline. And, they didn't get them back up for months. That franchise almost went out. So that's just a quick story as to what the problem is, the disconnect is, and also the reality of what you're giving up, basically, if you don't solve this issue.
Hey, Ben, while you were talking, I went ahead and requested an edit with Google Maps to change your business to now it is a daycare center for exotic animals with mullets. So if you
awesome.
And that's what happens.
Could be worse.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy what your competitors will try to do to make your listing go away. I know you just talked about PPC, which is funny because we keep talking about the bullet that's coming up. And then when the bullet comes up, we're like, oh, yeah, that's right. We were just about to talk about that. And you're talking about the PPC. And Justin, if you want to move to that organic PPC bullet, it's really interesting because if you're doing both, there's been enough studies that show that your chance of being clicked on in the search results is much higher if you have visibility in both places, not just one. Obviously, businesses don't want to have to spend money. They want those organic rankings, which is great. But if you're able to do both, you're likely to be clicked on more often than those that don't. Have more visibility and you'll have more brand awareness. So to me, if you can afford it, it's so worthwhile to do both paid and organic. And you can learn so much from both because keywords and search terms really aren't available anymore in our organic data beyond just what we see in Search Console. But when you're doing paid advertising, we can take a lot of those search terms that are working really well for us, and we can augment our organic strategy and put some of those search terms that are producing leads and revenue for us on paid into our organic strategy so that our organic strategy continues to grow. If we're doing placement targeting, we can take some of those placements that are sending customers and build relationships with those websites that culminate into more referral traffic and double placement in sites that are giving us traffic. So, and then on the organic side, we can take all those beautiful search terms that we're learning from our location pages in Search Console, move those into ad groups, right, as we're supporting our location search. And if you're using a service like Birdeye, you can do these really cool seller ratings with a quick little integration. Well, it's not that quick, but it takes a couple weeks. But once you get it in there, you get those seller ratings in the search results, and your click-through rate and paid will go through the roof. So it's it's really ideal to have placement in both. And it can be scary when you turn off paid search and you rely just on organic, believing that organic is going to see it through, because now you're number one. You'll start to see click-through rates go down. You're like, wait a minute, what happened? Our organic click-through rates just dropped, even though we're getting more traffic from organic. What happened? It's because you don't have that prominence in search results anymore. So I think it's really important to, if you have the budget, to try to have both, and then take the data from both to help improve your performance in both those platforms.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what Steve there just said there is 1,000% on tap, you know. And the only thing that I can add to that, actually, because Steve, that's perfect, dude, is that, you know, when you're investing in both, over time, your pay-per-click costs can come down, and your organic is going to start to not kind of almost take it over. You still want to do the pay-per-click, but, you know, again, organic is just going to grow, because that's what organic does. Organic just grows. It's usually a steady growth over the years, but the investment that you're putting into it comes back 1,000-fold.
Yep.
And by the way, Justin, how'd you get a picture of me on Monday?
I know, right? What
Awesome.
Ben does Monday mornings.
Cool. You know, one of the biggest differences between multi and single location businesses is that there's more locations, and with that comes a challenge of scaling. What goes into that when it comes to what is the difficulty that people face whenever they're trying to apply this to more locations?
When I think about the mom and pop shops, right? And I'm threatened, you know, as somebody who's worked with a lot of enterprise brands and franchises. I'm threatened by the mom and pop, because this mom and pop next door can stay up till 2 a.m. and just hammer away at their SEO, make their pages more unique, show pictures from the previous day, put events up on the website that are happening in the next few weeks in the community. They can do so many amazing things that the 1 to 3 people who work at the enterprise level in charge of thousands of locations cannot do. You can't edit every single location page for 2,000 locations the way the mom and pop it can. You can't stay up till 2 o'clock hammering away at location citations for local business directories in your area, you know, at scale at 2,000. It's really difficult to do that. So I think that the challenge when you're a multi-location brand is how do I beat this mom and pop that gets 5 stars because everyone loves them in their local place, and they've got one person there who's just drilling away, and I've got to do the same thing for 2,000 locations, and I'm still one person. That's the biggest challenge I think that enterprises have. And that's why it's so important that that person, that one role, goes back to the business with that predictive ROI thing and says, can I get more resources, including some software that I could use, including a little bit of the time of the individual locations to submit some surveys, to give me some local content that I could use, to give them some tools so they can take pictures and have them automatically go to their Google business profiles quickly and be just as fresh in terms of content and uniqueness as the mom and pop next door. It's really, really difficult to do that because, as Ben mentioned, it's hard to quantify the ROI on it. You're spending $300,000 a month on pay-per-click, $300,000 a month, most of these big brands, and you can't allocate a little bit of money to organic to have the same or better placement over time because they don't understand it, and there's that education gap. So scaling can be a real challenge, and we'll talk through some ways today, I think, that we can overcome that. But I can tell you that's the number one thing that I see is, look, I can't do what 5-star, you know, Joe's Restaurant does because I have 2,000 locations and can't put all that great content on our website every day for every location.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that it doesn't come down and it doesn't fall into the bucket of lazy marketing, right? Because the marketing departments usually at a franchise or an enterprise are very small. It's actually kind of surprising. You know, you're dealing with maybe 1 to 3 people for like 3,600 locations. Like, what? Are you kidding me? So it's like I remember when GMP Posts, Google My Business Google Business Profile now. Posts came out, right? Speaking to these enterprises, and they're like, yeah, we've got the, 6,000 locations or whatever the case may be, and we really want to do posts. And is there a way to do it automatically? Can we, can the content all be the same? And, my answers is, well, Google wants the content to be unique, and no, there are no tools that do this for you right now. And if there were, you could probably maybe get suspended. And so, but the discussion still comes down to today is like, again, we go back to this budget and this ROI aspect of things. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the manpower, they don't have the time, and they can't create these things. I guess I'll split it off into a different discussion. Somebody was talking to me about local landing pages the other day, right? Mm-hmm. And they have 1,000 units. And so they have 1,000 local landing pages, right? And they're like, well, does the content need to be unique on all of those pages? Yeah, the content does need to be unique on all of those pages. Absolutely. And I showed them an example of a vendor who has 36,000 locations and all of the pages are unique. And they're just like, what? How am I going to get that done? Well, put it in your budget. It'll get done.
Yep. It might be premature because we literally just launched it yesterday. But if you look at IHOP, as an example, and you do a search for, I don't know, breakfast delivery in the city that you happen to be in, so breakfast delivery Anaheim or whatever, I believe they're somewhere close to 87% of their locations now are on the first page, beating the delivery service providers. And
Nice.
The delivery and takeout subpages were something that in many ways kept the kitchen lights on during the pandemic when things were locked down. So it was kind of a saving grace to get the thumbs up to do something that we'd wanted to do from the get-go. And just yesterday I noticed that the pages went live with a lot of really unique content that was harvested over the course of about a year and a half. So if you take a look at IHOP delivery and takeout pages, again, just do breakfast takeout in any city where there's an IHOP, and breakfast delivery anywhere there's an IHOP location, and really study those pages. Again, it's only been a day, so there's probably some bugs and some kinks to work out, but it's really exciting to see what hyperlocal content looks like, and the year and a half of investment in trying to get a lot of that data. And there's always going to be the fighting with legal departments in terms of trademarks and names and words that you can't use, or they feel worried that if they use them, they're going to get sued for trademark. Like, oh, we're right next door to SoFi Stadium or something. Oh, can't use that because SoFi is a brand or it's a trademark. And it's like, we're just saying we're next door to them. But legal gets really concerned about that kind of stuff. So scaling can be tough, even if you put the time into, collecting a lot of localized data for your pages. But we've got some things that will help push you through that. We did a study at Wiideman.com. You can go to the very first link in our nav is about this local SEO study we did. And it has a chart and actually tell you, hey, by the way, if you could put hyperlocal content on our local pages, senior stakeholder, we'll have 107% competitive advantage over the competition. Oh, by the way, if we use custom location images, not just the same, logo image we have across all of our locations, we'll have an 84% competitive advantage. By the way, if we add a link for directions to Google Maps, based on some of the research, it looks like we might have a 16% competitive advantage over other of our competitors. So there's a lot of those that you'll find in that research that we did, including an infographic that sort of lays out an ideal, and I think we just started with the desktop version of it, and then we have a mobile as well, of what that local page could look like and what the attributes are that played a role when we looked at our study and the keyword rankings of the page. So you can make it happen, but be prepared as you start to scale to get a lot of kickback. One, on the cost to do all that data research, and then two, on what you can actually use dynamically, within those fields that you're creating, that won't get you in trouble or have any sort of trademark issues. It's a lot of work, but I promise you it's worth it. And if you look at those pages today, if there's no bugs, I think you'll be pretty impressed with what it looks like in the end.
Awesome. Well, let's keep going. And, the scaling activities challenge feeds perfectly into this next topic of single location versus multi-location SEO. And also, if you guys are facing challenges of your own, maybe something unique to your business or industry, feel free to let us know in the attendee chat, and during the Q&A, we can maybe take a look and, provide insight on that. So don't be afraid to do that and provide your own maybe unique experiences or something. But moving on, single location versus multi-location, and what exactly are the differences, and what do you need to do when it comes to each of these? And so to do that, we're going to ask a few of the kind of the most common questions that we get when it comes to this. The first one's pretty obvious. What's the difference between SEO strategy for single location versus multi-location businesses?
And I know we covered that a little bit already.
I think we just covered that already.
Yeah. So it's
but
deeper
I can tell you
scaling.
there's four areas really quickly that, and we talked about in the last one, that we want to differentiate. When you're a single location, it's really easy to manage everything on your own. Your Yelp, your search engines, your navigation engines, your social locals, your Yelp and and Facebook and so forth, and your reviews. You can manage all of that on your own as a single location pretty well, and use tools like Birdeye to instantly send review requests via text to streamline a little bit of that process as well. When you're multi-location, you've got to use platforms to manage all that business data, because you're not going to go in to all those different Yelp profiles. Okay, so we have an update in terms of the categories that we're offering. We're going to be offering seafood now. So we've got to go log into 1,600 Google profiles and add seafood as a menu item. That's just not practical. You can't scale that. So on the data management side, you really do need platforms to help you to be able to manage that. And I know Birdeye offers that service as well. Then there's, of course, those landing pages we just talked about. Then there's data visibility, which I mentioned. Joe's location restaurant can go out and spend all night getting all the different city directories to link to them and to mention the name, address, phone number. You can't really do that at scale. You have to build a small army of folks that can support that. And then the last part, the reviews and scaling that whole review process, pretty unmanageable and hard to track at scale and build aggregate reports in a Google Sheet. You really need a platform to help you manage that. So I think those are the differences. You can do a lot of what you need to do manually if you're a single location. The location pages won't exist on a single location. All the features that I just talked about for multi-location landing pages will normally be in the footer of your website across every page. The map, the link to directions, the hours, all of those different attributes would exist across the entire website in that footer. But if you have multiple locations, that's when you create those location pages that have all that information. Those are the differences.
And when you are putting these different things into action, there's a couple of different effects. It could either help with your ranking or your conversions. And that is the next question, which is, what is a conversion signal versus a ranking signal?
That's
and how do those each apply?
Yeah, I mean, so I personally think that these two things are very equal to each other, right? Some people like to focus just on ranking. My story to that is back in the web hosting days when I was working with like GoDaddy and HostGator and such, is they were always focused on getting the keyword web hosting, right? Always. After some analysis, we did a whole bunch of analysis on this, and we found out that keyword converted at 1%. Massive amount of traffic. It just didn't convert. Why? Because it was mainly web hosting companies typing in web hosting. So when it comes to local, like for instance, with GBP, there's only a couple of different levers that you can really even pull that are going to help you from a ranking aspect. It's going to be your name. It's going to be your address, proximity. It's going to be your categories. It's going to be the reviews that are being left for you. And it's going to be the website URL that you're pointing to for your website. That's about it. Everything else, gravy. We're going to talk about that in myths, but basically everything else is a conversion signal. So the conversion signal is like, for instance, how many people are dwelling on your GBP, how many people are clicking into your reviews, how many people are reading your reviews, marking them as helpful, for instance, how many people are looking at your posts, how many people are clicking on your posts, things like that. And how many people are looking at your images? Are they sharing those images? What are they doing? Are they, again, dwelling on them? And then when they get to your website, you have tons of conversion signals. For instance, are you using a call tracking number that is showing a local phone number? Do you have a form that people can fill out? Do you have a location finder that's really easy to use? Right.
I love that. So we're measuring actions, and engagement more than just keyword rankings, because it shows the search engines that there's activity happening and that there's interest, as opposed to just trying to figure out our way to game ourselves to #1 in the search results. We're showing the search engines that we're active, we're interesting, and people like to engage with our content more so than the competition. I love that.
Exactly. And I'll just, we haven't even talked about this. I'm going to briefly touch on
We're
this.
not going to make it an hour.
No, we're definitely not making it. Sorry, Justin. We're
It's
gonna
all
have to
good.
like
We'll,
do a 2.2 series.
yeah.
But and we don't talk about this much, but that is that SEO companies have grown such a point where we are not just responsible for ranking. We are responsible for impacting the business in multiple ways. From analyzing the reviews to showing and finding where basically the business itself is weak and can be improved, to helping with conversions and CRO basically on the website, and in so many other different ways. So we touch so many aspects of the business, but we have to, because ultimately it's what Google cares about too, and it's what consumers care about. Anyway, enough of that, off the soapbox.
Ooh, nationally versus locally. This is a good one. I mean, this is such a I get this a lot with some of the students at my Cal State Fullerton class. Like, hey, I'm doing this project, but I just realized, that Maps comes up before, the listing that I've been optimizing. Do we have to do something different for Maps, than what we do for web? And the way that we've kind of always segmented is the organic web results, like the blue link, black text, that will show up below the map pack is. And for a localized search where Google's figured out when somebody puts in this keyword, they're looking for something local, right? The way to manage that on the website side of things is, there's 3 factors, right? There's your relevancy for the keyword that they're searching for, the popularity and visibility of that page and the content on that page, and the user search behavior signals. Are they clicking on our listing because it provides rich results and makes you want to click on it? Or is it just kind of generic keyword, pipe symbol, brand, right? Are we trying to stand out and show searchers that we're the best, most helpful result? If you do a search for title tag principles, you might see our listing somewhere in the top 3 results, and it talks about using a call to action, the keyword, and a unique selling proposition, but it also invokes those principles and saying, look, use these title tag principles to improve SEO and keyword rankings, because we know our customer does not care about title tag principles. What they care about is increasing their click rate in search results and increasing and improving their SEO. So we solve for the intent, not just for the query. And I think Google's said this multiple times with their Hummingbird update, that it's all about, things, not strings. So nationally, that's what we focus on, and we geo modify our keyword targets with the locations that we're targeting. So if you have a location page and you're a electronics store in, and city name goes in that title, maybe you'll even mention the city name in a heading and a subheading within the content, so that when Google crawls the page, they know that that page is meant for somebody in that specific city. Now, locally, we already talked about those factors, right? We talked about data management, local page optimization, business data visibility, your citations and mentions online, and your reputation, the quality, quantity, and velocity of reviews that are coming in. So that's how you differentiate the two. And for web search, for national, if you're not seeing a localized result, that means most likely Google doesn't think that people are looking for something that's local. And the optimization factors are what I just mentioned for web search. It's your relevancy of the content, the visibility, and of course the user search behavior signals. And you don't want to geo modify that content, or they're going to restrict you to showing up just in localized queries, which, as we mentioned, wouldn't even be applicable for it. So avoid using too many city names and regional terms in that national content, and focus on trying to provide the best answer to what that particular person's searching for. And most of those queries nationally are going to be for brand awareness or because you sell nationally, one of the two. Oh, yeah, we also mentioned some
and the next one of that is, how do you rank in the local pack with multiple locations?
Yep,
and so that's prevent them from cannibalizing.
Yeah, that was it. So that was the data, the local page, the citations, and reputation. Those are the main primary ways to rank in the mobile map pack and within local results.
Awesome. All right, moving on to SEO for franchises.
And we got time for this.
We can save this for later. We do have a couple more topics to get through.
Let's fly through it. Let's just fly through it.
Let's go.
We can
Let's
fly
do it.
through
Let's
it.
do it.
Okay. So
Yeah, we'll see what we can
I'll
do.
click through it, and so everyone can see, and then we
So
can go
here are
through.
the challenges, right? The rogue franchisees that don't want to listen to you. By the way, we have a cheat sheet for this. If you got that cheat sheet at the beginning, where we mentioned that you're going to get a download, this will give you something you can give to your location, your franchises, to say, please don't do these things because we're doing them for you. Please don't do these things because it's going to work against us. And please don't, please try to do these things because they're going to help you to improve your visibility, such as verifying driving directions are correct and your pins are correct. And it's a really neat little cheat sheet that you can give to each individual location to prevent them from going rogue. The franchise, go ahead, Ben. You're gonna say something.
I was going to say, yeah. So that, like, we work with a lot of franchises and franchisors, and compliance is one of the biggest things, right?
Yeah.
So the franchisor gets in trouble when the franchisee, for instance, gets suspended, right? So the franchisee blames the franchisor, even though it's something that the franchisee did. But I blame the franchisor because the franchisor has not educated the franchisee on things that they should and shouldn't do, aka look at Steve's list. So rogue franchisees
this morning, Ben, from franchisees that were requesting to manage their Google business profiles. So obviously corporate isn't communicating with one of those accounts. Yeah.
Exactly. And to be fair, franchisors all have different arrangements with their franchisees, and that's where the agreement comes in. Does the franchisor have, like a MAP fund, which is a major fund that they use? They take a percentage of the revenues and they put it into about 5% usually, and then they pay for the marketing. Whether they pay through it for approved vendors or they just say, well, we're just going to pay for your marketing. You tell us what you want to use. And then the other ones have some agreement where it's a hybrid between the two. Like, well, franchisor will take care of this, but franchisee takes care of this. And then there's the franchisor, which just says, you're on your own. Good luck. Obviously that's not the best network to be in, but it exists. But the thing is that all of these things are challenges, and it all starts, I believe, with the franchisor. The franchisor needs to make a decision who is going to control things and what's going to happen if they don't have control of these things. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on from that. That's just really quick.
So with that, questions to ask your franchisor: who owns/runs the GBP and social accounts? Who pays for the marketing? Are there specific vendors that we need to use? And can you use your own website? And so when you ask these questions, Ben, for your franchisor, what exactly is like the result? Like, are these things not normally covered in the franchisor agreement? So normally
I don't think those exist.
Like maybe only one of those is covered usually, and that's who pays for marketing. And that's usually it's usually not on target from what I've seen, because they'll say that there's a fund, but the fund has conditions in it, and they don't communicate that like up front, And unfortunately, I did see a quick question as if there's like a template, for this franchise agreement. Unfortunately, no. It's usually covered and littered with so much legality in it that it's pretty unique per franchisor. But the guiding tenets are pretty much the same. So, when you're putting together the franchisor agreement, look at these 4 questions and make sure you answer these 4 questions. The last one, that is the most important one. Can you use your own website? Because if you cannot use your own website, you're using a subdirectory on the franchisor's website, well, guess what? You are locked into their template, their CMS, and their SEO. You have zero control. So make sure you can use your own. And if you have to stick with their brand guidelines, fine, no problem. But at least you control your own code.
Yeah, and you've got that cheat sheet that I mentioned too. And that cheat sheet is something you'd go to your franchisor and say, hey, I got this on a webinar. Can you walk me through these things and show me what we're doing differently or what you'd like us to do differently?
Awesome.
And all these are on there.
So let's go into local SEO myths. So what are people doing and what should they not be doing? And the first one that we've got is Google stacking. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to click through these just so we can have
that one. Oh my God. Yes. If you see or hear about any of these kind of things,
okay. I'll just hit them super, super duper quick. Google stacking is the theory that if you can leverage Google's properties against themselves, don't worry about it. Anybody says Google stacking, run the other way. It doesn't work.
I saw
That
link
falls
wheels
under
in a thread this morning on one of the sites too. It's like, really, people are still doing this garbage?
yeah, I know, right? Service areas on your GBP profiles do not impact ranking as of today. I wouldn't expect that they do for a long time. So don't worry about it. It's a visual thing only. Purchasing ads. Sorry, you can spend $1 million a month with Google AdWords. It's not going to help your ranking.
35 million a
And
week.
the last, yes. And the last one is people think that organic is not going to affect paid. Incorrect. Organic, basically, think of it as this. There's the organic algorithm, then there's the local algorithm. Local algorithm sits on top of the organic algorithm. So everything that you do from an organic standpoint is going to therefore increase and impact your local ranking.
Love it.
And we've got the next round of myths. LSA does not affect ranking, keyword stuffing, and geotagging and adding EXIF data to images, and then keywords in review responses are the next round of myths.
I think the LSA probably should have been worded a little bit different, because I don't believe that doing LSA ads will affect rankings. I do have enough data to show that having ads and organic on the first page can increase click-through rates, which may have correlation causation impact on organic rankings long term. But Ben, do you have any feedback?
No, LSA doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't affect ranking. It's a different product. It's a different division. The only thing it does is it gets you up nice up at the top with the Google guarantee, right, or the Google screen badge.
So the myth
however,
is that LSA affects keyword ranking. That's the myth.
Exactly.
It does not affect. Yeah.
Exactly, which it doesn't.
It just worded weird on the slide.
Yeah, and keyword stuffing, the reason why I have this in there is that I hear this all the time, and people are like, well, should I put keywords in my review responses? Should I put it in the labels field? Should I put it in my products and services? No. That's the answer. Don't put keywords in everything. It's not going to help you. You're wasting time, and guess what? It makes you kind of look foolish. So, yeah. Especially in review responses, it's awkward.
Yeah, and if you put it in your business name, you will likely get pulled by Ben or somebody else whose job is to identify when people are using names that don't match with their actual business names. Like, if I went in and changed Wiideman Consulting Group to Wiideman Consulting Group Local Multi-Location SEO Audits, Consulting and Services, and that's my new business name. One, it looks super spammy, and two, if somebody looks me up, they can be like, actually, it just says Wiideman Consulting Group. You're just shoving keywords in there to rank, so I'm going to flag you. And it's almost like high school. It's like a permanent ding on your record. Stop getting flagged for doing shady stuff.
Yeah, we actually, it's part of the compliance piece, that product we were talking about earlier, the assurance product. We help companies actually get in compliance with that. So you could be, XYZ, retail chain, Italian restaurant of certain city. That can actually be done, and it can be done in the guidelines. But yeah, the last one is geotagging and EXIF data. If anybody tells you, oh, geotagging, we have to do that, it'll help ranking. Again, falls into the snake oil salesman. They don't have anything else to sell you, so they'll sell you something that doesn't do anything. Yeah. And if they say, well, I have a case study, say, oh, sure, you have a case study. What else were you doing during that case study? Oh, you were building links. Got it. And last thing is keywords and review responses. Again, they look awkward. Don't do it.
My caveat on the keywords and review responses is sometimes they'll do a search and it'll show in the map pack, if you typed in a certain keyword, if somebody left a review, it'll highlight the word in that review to say people here say such and such, which may convince the user to choose the result. But I don't believe there's a direct ranking factor to having a keyword in a review. But I do see users click on listings where the review contains the words that they were searching. So.
Those actually come from the review which was left, not from the review response.
Right.
So
response,
that's why we focus on
right. Yes.
Yes, that's why we focus on the keywords and review response being the local SEO myth versus the actual review that's being left does actually impact your ranking. So
All right.
point.
And so we are about to jump into Q&A, but first we're going to go over some tips and best practices for everybody. And while we do that, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. Even if you have to drop off at the top of the hour, we'll still answer it, and you can watch us provide you the answer in the recording. So if you're tight on time, you can still ask a question, and we'll still get it answered for you. So just a reminder for that. And let's go over some tips and best practices. And the first one we've got is optimize for customer experience, not Google. What exactly does that mean?
Well, we just talked about solving for the intent, right? It's things, not strings. So if people are saying in the theme of the reviews that you're getting, people are saying some certain things about how great your bacon is at the restaurant that you have, or certain things, emphasize those things more than just restaurant and city name, right? And put something in there that says famous for our incredible bacon, and just try to emphasize what it is your customers really like about your business. And you draw the right audience, because if people like a certain thing and you make that prominent, they're going to come in, have that certain thing, and go, yeah, that actually was really good. It marries together really well, as opposed to saying, well, this keyword has 100,000 searches a month and that one only has 5,000, so I need to go after that broad word restaurant. Well, you're going to waste a lot of time, energy, money, and get a lot of people who aren't going to click on your listing because they're not looking for your type of restaurant. So focus on what your customers want, not what you think you can get the most traffic from. Forget the traffic, focus on your target audience. Yeah.
And it goes back to what we were saying earlier, right? Which is that as SEOs, we're responsible for a lot more than just ranking. And if you look, let me, I guess, dial it back 2 seconds here. If you've been in this industry for 30 years, right? There's one thing you understand, and that is back in the 90s, you did not optimize for keyword density, volume, or anything like that. You were just kind of doing your thing. And your thing was bring people to the website that are going to convert into business. That was your thing, right? So when you were getting a link, you were getting a link because you wanted the traffic from that page to come to your client's website. And guess what? The thing is that Google understands this. Google built for this. Okay. And still to this very day, that same mentality actually works. SEOs hate to hear this, by the way, but it's true. It really is. If you're optimizing
Justin,
for experience, SEO comes.
What's our next tip?
Don't put your faith in ranking myths.
No. Or snake oil SEO companies. Get a consultant to come in and pretend to be your interim marketing director as you're interviewing agencies. We do that all the time whenever somebody's like, I'm not sure if I should hire this company. Well, have us on the call and I'll pretend I'm your interim digital marketing director, and I'll ask all the right questions. And I've done that a few times, and the other company eventually just hung up. They were like, oh yeah, they've got an expert. They're calling us out on things that we shouldn't be doing, and we look silly, so we'll just drop the call.
Can't get through the Wiideman firewall.
That's next. The Wiideman firewall. Got to trademark that. All right. Build a conservative forecast and ROI.
Oh yeah, and we have a tracking sheet you could use too. I have a Bitly URL for it for KPI tracking. Bitly, I just used it. I think it's Bitly/KPI tracker, KPI-tracker. So if you use that, you can go to this little sheet and then go to performance KPIs, and you can see kind of an example of what you could do. Again, it's just to track metrics that are important to your business. We generally highlight in green what the key stakeholders are looking for. So traffic, share of voice in keyword rankings, revenue segmented from maps versus organic. Those are KPIs that you can track, and you can every month record where you're at and see how you're progressing toward hitting those KPIs. Really, really important to do that, because never have I been in a meeting with an agency when I've asked the question of what were our KPIs for the year and what percentage close are we to hitting those KPIs right now? And it's always a shrug, because nobody does it, but you're going to do it now because you have the template.
And what was that URL, Steve?
Bitly/KPI-tracker.
/KPI-tracker. If this does not work, please forgive me. I don't think I have the. Wait, is it like a bit.ly.com? Can you see that in the attendee chat, Steve?
Here, I'll just
hopefully
pull it up for you.
Does that look correct?
Here,
And we'll open up our next tip for that while we do this.
Go for it.
Cool. Leverage business data management platforms. Ben, what exactly does that entail? Because as we were talking about with scaling, you know, as you have more locations, managing that data can get more complicated.
Normally, I am not a purveyor of saying you should use something like Yext. When it comes to franchises and enterprises, well, actually more enterprises, using something like Yext is a necessary evil. You have to do it.
And Ben, you know, Birdeye does that pretty damn well too.
Well, right, exactly. But well, actually, no, Birdeye doesn't. Anyway, so, but yes, using something that can help you manage your NAP consistency, you know, across directories and help you kind of manage your reviews at scale. That is very, very necessary, because otherwise the job's just not going to get done. You know, the only thing that I ever warn about that is that if somebody's going to be managing data, is try not to have them as the source of truth for your name, address, and phone number. Because if you connect that to your Google business profile and that's true, if somebody comes in and makes a rogue edit and then your system turns it back automatically and somebody goes in, does it again and again and goes back and forth ping-ponging, guess what? You will be suspended. I see it all the time, which is why I'm usually not a proponent of connecting services like that, citation services.
Yep. So yeah, if you're at scale, you definitely don't want to do it manually. And so we're gonna edit our data axle. We're gonna edit our localies. We're gonna edit our Foursquare, and then we're gonna go into Google Maps and to Bing Maps, and then to Yahoo. Then we're gonna go into Nokia here and MapQuest. Then we're gonna go into to Facebook and to Yelp, and then we're gonna go into all of our industry directories. We're lawyers, so we're gonna be lawyer.com and Avo and Justia and FindLaw. And we're going to do that across 2,000 locations. No way could you do that with all the daily updates and changes that have to happen. You've got to use a platform to do it at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And have an annual plan to earn regional and industry citations.
Yep. And this is a fun one too, because you can use a lot of different research tools that are available to find, you know, one at scale. You take all the locations that you have a location in, and you do a little bit of research to figure out where those competitors are getting their businesses listed. And then you can take a pivot table to figure out where more of those national important directories are. And then you isolate the ones that are specific to each city. And then you start assigning them, whether it's to VAs in the Philippines, or if it's to, you know, maybe a college intern who comes in and wants to learn a little about digital marketing and get their hands dirty with doing some outreach. You know, it could be a great way to start that process. But every month we're building a pattern of more and greater visibility for each location by doing that. So having that plan, knowing exactly where we want to go after in the next year, and then executing it. And if you get through it in 3 months, that's amazing. Then do a refresh, do some expansion, find some new opportunities, and jump on that. But most of the time, it does take the good part of a year, you know, to accomplish that. And you look back and like, wow, each location now has 75 business citations from traffic driving websites. It's pretty exciting.
Awesome. And our last tip before we jump into Q&A is have a monthly plan to encourage and improve reviews.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this one is so important. This one is so important. This is a conversion factor, okay? Really is what this is. And I see this all the time with especially enterprises. Oh my God. Steve, I'm sure you see this on the restaurant side, huge. You know, the fact is this, is restaurants for right. But when somebody's getting, you know, 1,000 reviews, 2,000 reviews, and you have this, again, this small team, right? Reviews become like the least possible thing that they care about, because they're on so many other different types of activities. However, inside of those reviews is a mountain of gold. Number one, you have customers who are dissatisfied. You're always going to have somebody who's not happy, right? You can address that, and it'll make that person feel better. They've been heard and they can have a resolution. And B, somebody else who's coming up behind them to read that review is going to be like, okay, obviously they care, right? So I think I'll give it a shot, you know, even though that person said there was hair in their dish, whatever the case may be. And
The
but
roll-up of
then
that data is
it's
awesome
like,
too, Ben. When you
what's
look at
that?
the roll-up of it and you're able to theme a lot of the different things that people are saying,
Yeah,
using platforms and SaaS to do some magic with AI to really understand the common sentiment and themes that we're seeing across locations allows a business to
exactly.
to make decisions that affect every location and the future sentiment, and then they can measure that. Hey, our sentiment was here last month, and we're getting 3.2 star. In the past 30 days, we were able to make some changes based on what we learned and at scale and aggregate, and we
Hmm.
rolled those changes out, and now we're getting 3.9s, and we don't see that negative word appear as often. It's pretty fun to watch, and again, in an aggregate, um, an ecosystem to be able to see that at scale is pretty exciting, and to adjust it at the business
Yeah.
level is, it's to me, it's paramount, and I don't think anyone. A lot of these big corporations just don't do that. Everything gets funneled to customer service, and none of this data gets harvested for marketing purposes.
Exactly, exactly. And then you see in other types of companies, again, this is nobody's fault. And the fault is that the war room experience never occurred, right? And that is that they're like, well, we'll just answer the negative reviews, or well, we'll just answer the positive reviews, or well, we'll answer the reviews that were less in the last 7 days. Just let everything kind of go, right? But that's the wrong attitude. That's completely the wrong attitude. Every review should be responded to in one way or another. I don't care if you're using AI moderation or not to do it. It just needs to get done. I'm sure Birdeye probably has some awesome templates that help speed up this entire process. So, so yes, make it a priority. It's super important that reviews are tended to.
It makes every person feel important too. Every customer feels like, okay, you listened. You know, I complained yesterday to TechSmith about how they stripped the custom branding off of their screencast platform. I was really ticked off, and the fact that I was able to reach out and talk to somebody and voice my view, and I got a response, made me feel at least listened to, even though I was ticked that they have no timing for when they're going to fix it. Sorry, TechSmith. You're listening.
Well, so I lied. We actually have one more tip before we get into Q&A, and that is to get location stakeholders involved in local SEO efforts.
Use the cheat sheet. That's the answer. Just download the cheat sheet, and you'll have that, and it'll be like, oh, this is all I got to do. Oh, shoot, we got to turn off these other rogue websites we have because corporate's already got us covered or whatever. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So now let's get into Q&A, and we've got some great
All right.
questions. And as a reminder, the recording of this session will be made available. So I think either tomorrow you should get an email from us with a link to the recording. So let's go over the Q&A. And so the first one that we can get to is from Eddie. And he says, I sell all over the country. Could I use addresses or coverage areas and confirm the address with Google, but only ship from another location? No walk-ins. No walk-ins for those addresses, as really do not have a store open for the public there.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, the short answer is, Eddie, is no. Okay. The reason is that you're not going to have a legal nexus all over the country. You're not going to have locations all over the country. You've already kind of alluded to that, and you have to actually have a location. And realistically, if you're all over the country, national SEO is really the solution for you versus local SEO, because people just aren't going to be looking for you locally. You got to remember, Google Business Profile, it comes down to your business model. And if you are visiting customers in that area, like literally going to their homes, okay, not just shipping to them, then that's who you have a service area based business for. If they come to you, that's going to be a storefront. Unless you're like a pizza shop, where you have a hybrid of the two. But unfortunately, you really don't fall into either one of those buckets.
Ben, depending on what the business model is, what's worked well for some businesses like California Closets, they have showrooms, and sometimes they'll share
Sure.
those showrooms with other businesses. So if there's a vertical in your business that doesn't compete with you, and you can collaborate with those businesses, perhaps one that already has a franchise. Think U-Haul, right? And how U-Haul has, I know Donna, you're on there. I saw your name earlier, but U-Haul has storage. They've got transportation. They've got logistical things. They've got a ton of different things happening at a single location. So there's no reason why you couldn't partner up with a similar vertical and have a shop. So there's Starbucks inside of Albertsons over here in Southern California, and
But
those
these are
Starbucks have physical addresses.
yeah,
So
but
there's no
everything
reason that
you're
you
talking
couldn't
about,
partner up and do that.
that's true. But everything you're talking about is local intent, right?
So,
Starbucks,
yeah,
local
if you
intent.
want to do a
U-Haul, local
showroom though,
intent.
you could target locally with that showroom, but it's got to be a legit physical place they can go in, see what you offer, and then when they come in, you simply say, "Great, we don't actually sell, those products here. It's just a showroom, but you can order them here. Here's a tablet and, whatever."
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
And our next question is from Yash, and he says, we have a client who has a dozen
Yeah.
locations who lost all of their Google business profile pages. They just disappeared and are nowhere to be found. Had hundreds of reviews on each location. We have been trying to contact Google for months and have not heard back once. Any input? The client had to
Yeah.
make brand new GBPs for each
I would
location.
say they need to talk to Ben after this call. So Ben,
Yeah. Yeah. Reach out to me, Yash. The unfortunate thing is that you've already gone ahead and created new locations. So when you have this kind of an issue, yeah, you can go to support, but you should, as soon as support gives you basically what we call the golden middle finger, is then you have to reach out to the community, because then somebody like me can go ahead and actually really go ahead and take a look at it. Unfortunately, in this scenario, there's actually more information needed, like where they actually remove from your dashboards, which is also extremely common. If it is, you have a very certain time period actually to get them retrieved, which it sounds like you've gone over. However, the reviews are recoverable sometimes. So if you're still here, just to reach out to me individually.
And from the last webinar, when you do get reviews, screenshot those suckers. That was Ben's advice, and that's super smart.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, and the next one is it better to push Google reviews over Facebook and Yelp reviews, as most customers will not do multiple ones?
I say have them leave the review where they leave reviews, right? Share your feedback, with us. Don't ask for a review. Even Google's starting to harp on that. Share your feedback with us online and your favorite, place to share, whether it's Google, Facebook, or whatever. Let them decide where they want to leave them. Eventually, I think people are going to continue to move toward Google because you see that more and more now. But I don't think. I think if you're somebody who doesn't leave reviews on Google and you suddenly leave one, more recently than ever, you're not seeing those reviews show up. Google questions them, scrutinizes them.
Sure.
But if they always are leaving reviews or their local guide, yeah, that'd be great. Leave the review on Google. But if they don't leave reviews on Facebook and suddenly they leave a review and someone looks at other reviews they left and like, wow, this person's only left one review, the credibility of it, kind of goes away, both, algorithmically through the platform and the users that are looking at the trustworthiness of that review. So I would have them choose where they want to leave the review.
Yeah. And something
It's
else
very much. Go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
I was going to say something that you could do is take your Google review and just post it to your Facebook page and use that as an individual social post. And that's using your reviews as remarketing.
You could do
but
that.
maybe not replacing it in your Facebook review section.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite
Right.
so
Don't
much.
submit it as a review in Facebook, but definitely as a post. I think it's a great idea.
Or as an image.
Check out this
even
great
better.
review you got, and then splatter that all over Twitter and LinkedIn everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay to brag.
And the only thing, I only have one thing to, because I mean, what Steve is saying is absolutely correct, but the only other thing I have to say is it matters, where do your customers come from, right? Do they come from Facebook? Do they come from Yelp? Those are very specific verticals, just with, as with Google, is was same with Yelp. Those reviews can maybe not show up. So that's always going to be a risk. Is it SEO more important to you than, again, that where all your customers are? If the answer is yes, then make your strategy a 3-for-1, 3 to Google, 1 to Yelp, or something like that, or have an entirely separate campaign. Okay,
we got to layer the native reviews on top of that. We got to get the customer, if we can, to give us a review directly on our website so that we can use that as unique content for our page, for our location pages. So if you can do the native reviews, do that first, and then after they've left the review, say, do you love us enough to share, your experience off our website? And if they do, great, then you get a Google or Facebook. But if you get that content, that's your content that's going to help you, make your pages more unique and help your pages rank better. So start with native reviews, and then, ask them if they'd be willing to leave a review on their favorite online platform. But stop giving your best content to these third parties. That's your content. Right. Those are your reviews.
I agree. And I guess the last thing that also would be is that you can also do a dedicated campaign, right? So let's say your first campaign is a Google campaign. Great, no problem. You take that batch of people who have left you reviews, and then in a quarter, maybe 3 months later, say, "Hey, just so you know, we're working on Yelp at the moment. We'd love to have you share your experience with us, on Yelp. If you have a Yelp account, we'd love for you to leave a review." I believe you can ask that kind of solicitation with the Yelp. I'm pretty sure. So, but yeah, maybe just do a standalone campaign.
Awesome. Why is my rank different on Chrome versus Edge? Does anyone even use Edge? How do you improve rank in Edge as they don't have Google Business?
Look at your analytics, whether you're using Google Analytics or something else, and GA4 now, right? But see where your customers are coming from, and I think that's where I'd put the most attention. And I think you're going to find most of it's Chrome and Safari. On mobile, most of your traffic's going to be coming from iPhones, almost guaranteed. If you're in the States and you go into device and where your mobile traffic's coming from, it's all iPhones. I hope the Pixel picks up a little bit because iPhone quality's gone to hell. So it'll be nice to see more people on these beautiful Pixels. Anyway, I think that's the data should drive where you care about your rankings. But I know that there are different browser experience settings. Google also personalizes your experience based on previous searches, quite a bit. So if you haven't searched as much on Edge while logged into Google, then of course you're going to get different results if you're in Chrome and you've been logged in and looking at things differently. So and there's so many examples of this. Depending on where you are, you search for Disney, and then the autocomplete will show Disneyland if you're closer to the West Coast, and it'll show Disney World if you're closer to the East Coast. So there's a lot of that personalization that goes into search queries. But if you're unsure and you want a second opinion, by all means, after the call, hit me, Ben, Justin, and we'll take a look and see if we can see what might be causing those discrepancies.
Awesome. The other thing also to keep in mind is that you're correct. Edge does not have Google Business. They use Bing, their own search engine. So if you're looking at difference between Google Maps and Bing, you're absolutely going to see different results.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we got another one here, and we are running pretty long on time, so we'll probably wrap up here in a couple minutes. But if you still have questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time on LinkedIn. You should have all our LinkedIns and our emails in the speaker bio box.
I got 5 more minutes, so I'm good.
Perfect. Okay, and I think this is a good one because I feel like this is an actionable thing, and this is something that Ben, you and I have talked about, or I'm sorry, Steve, and maybe I think it might have been our very first webinar together. And that's how many pictures are minimally recommended to improve Google ranking, whether that's photos on your
all of them. It's so neat right now to look at all these different things that users interact with. Ben made a great point on the importance of actions and interactions. And for me, I think activity happening at all with your business and how people are interacting with your listing, with your website, with all the things that are happening. I think there's just a ton of value there. So with pictures, one of the things that we've been recommending is we put together another little personalized cheat sheet, and you can do your own, but it basically tells employees, here's what you could do every day that will help us make sure our location information is correct and our directions are correct, and to provide a little bit more fresh content. So every day, before you come into work, get on your phone, go to Google Maps, get directions. Next day, go to Yelp, get directions, or go to Bing and get directions. Go to MapQuest, get directions. Every day, do something different, and then repeat every week so that you're verifying that the directions are accurate. And if they're not, then somebody on your team who runs local can fix those things. But in doing that, you're showing that there's search and that there's activity for your business. And when you get there, if there's a little check-in now, or I am here, right, or any sort of a cue to show that particular engine that you're actually at the place that you went to look for, that'll help. And then when you're there, take some pictures and be like, oh cool, it's actually the weather's different today, and let me get a picture of the building with this cool background, or let me get a selfie in front of the sign, right? Get the sign in there as much as you can. All of those kind of things. As you're posting those, there's new and fresh content that's that's being displayed that users can see, and they can see, whoa, this was just posted yesterday. Cool. So this place must be in business and not closed the way a lot of businesses are right now because of whatever's happening in the world. So I think if you get all of your team members, your employees to do that, think of what that pattern looks like over a month. If you've got 5 employees, 10 employees, multiply that by 20 days, right? Because we're not going to come in on weekends. And it could really make a difference. Post those pictures like crazy. Do the 360 on your phone. Do a panoramic. Do video, right? Of what to look for, what to shop, tips, tricks. Do a TikTok. All of those types of rich media provide great experiences and exposure to the business for people who've never really seen or been to your place before. And I've seen in many cases, and I've talked to some other amazing SEO geniuses, local SEO geniuses that have seen where you use Google's image recognition API, or just pop in your image into the image recognition API, and if Google can figure out with certainty that you're looking at a stack of pancakes, right? Keep taking that picture until that level of certainty is as high as it possibly can get, and post that picture. That way, when Google's crawling the image, they can see, hey, this is a pancake. And when somebody searches for pancakes near me, it's going to show that image as a preview in the map, so that you're like, oh, cool, they do have pancakes, and Google will know because it used that image recognition to understand what it is. So play around with that a little bit and see what you can do. There's lots of services that are out there, like AirCam, that provide that service as a service, but there's no reason why as a small business you couldn't do that on your own. So post pictures of everything you do, everything you offer, and make sure that Google understands exactly what it is without you telling them what it is.
Yeah, so I'll just throw out 2 tools there that can be used. One is free, and it's called imageranks.com. It does tie directly into the Google's Graph API, the Cloud Vision API. On top of that, you can actually embed like location data and all sorts of stuff. But also you can download it and optimize it for your website in a very specific format that Google uses actually to rank content on your website. So it's used for both mobile as well as organic ranking. And hope you don't mind, Justin, but I'll just say we also have another tool that we provided. It's called Local Picks. It's on steadydemand.com. This one we created because it's a very difficult problem to get images done. So what we do is we will basically just text, say, a location manager and say, hey, it's time to upload a photo. They take a picture with their phone and bang, it goes up on Google in literally 7 seconds. It's really, to answer your question, there is no minimum number. However, as Steve was saying, it's extremely important, because especially as how visual Google is when they're algorithm.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, so I think we've already gone past time, and we are well past that. So I think it's probably a good spot for us to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for coming in and offering your insights. It's always a blast. I think we've got another one with the 3 of us, and maybe, who knows, maybe even other people later coming, maybe at the turn of the new year. And thank you everyone here for joining. Please be sure to check out that related content, download that local SEO checklist, and register for our next upcoming webinars. If you have any questions, please feel free to email events@birdeye.com, or reach out to all the 3 of us on LinkedIn and through our emails in the speaker bios. But until then, we will see you guys soon, and thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having us.